Hey guys, well, it's Troy Francis and you join me here in Bucharest in Romania, and what I wanted to talk about now is, well, it's a slightly esoteric concept, but it is vitally important for your dating life and really for other aspects of life as well, and that is authenticity, okay? The need for authenticity. Now, just recently, because I work online, obviously I'm on Twitter a lot, I'm on YouTube and all this kind of stuff, I've been following a guy on Twitter primarily called John Zurker, who I didn't know much about before. He's a streamer, I think. He is Albanian and he's currently in Miami. He goes on Fresh and Fit quite a lot. He's friends with Sneeko and Xena and people in the Fresh and Fit camp. And yeah, man, I mean, his Twitter recently has been entertaining, let's say. He says a lot of things I don't necessarily agree with. He says some pretty batshit stuff, I think. But equally, the way that he is using Twitter, the way that he's writing on there, and the things that he's talking about, and the way that he is talking about his life, okay, which seems to be composed of mainly going on podcasts and sitting around in a hotel room and probably ingesting various substances and going to bed with different girls. It's all great stuff, by the way. Is just incredibly raw and refreshing, and I've not really seen anybody talk about this stuff in quite the way that he is. I'm trying to think if there's another example of somebody who's been this raw with this stuff recently, and I can't really think of anybody. But the point is that when you think about social media, right, you think about something like Twitter or Instagram or YouTube. The platforms themselves are these pretty uniform things, really. I mean, Twitter, you know, it's got a little bit more interesting now that Big Daddy Elon is in charge, but the platform itself is fairly, it is what it is, right? I mean, and it's good now because they seem to be encouraging the use of video and longer form content and stuff, which I think is all good. But before, it was just this very monolithic kind of thing where you'd post a tweet of a certain number of characters, and guys who were using it commercially, building a personal brand and stuff, were doing it in a very, you know, you get courses of how to tweet efficiently, and people were following almost like a template, and it was all very, and some people did it more successfully than others. I mean, certainly people have done it far more successfully than I have, but the difficulty is that you fall into a kind of uniformity, okay? You end up sort of doing what everybody else does, all right? And the beauty and the genius of someone like a Zurker character is that he comes in and he takes the medium, all right? The medium, it's important. The medium is Twitter. Everyone's got access to the same interface when they go onto Twitter. And he has gone onto that medium, that platform, and used it in a way that really nobody else is. And he's used it in a way that is, you could argue, kind of nuts, but it's really compelling, okay? And so what's the point of all of this? Well, the point of talking about this is, firstly, check out his Twitter, because yeah, it's kind of interesting. But more than that, there's a lesson here, a broader lesson about the need to be authentic and the need to be raw, particularly in a world where AI, as we all know, is now becoming this incredibly prominent thing that it wasn't even 6 months ago, you know, ChatGPT and all the rest of it. The problem with ChatGPT, and I've played around a little bit with it for, you know, for my own purposes, and I've sort of got it to do some things for me and stuff. And the problem with it as a writing tool is that, yes, it comes out with grammatically correct and well-structured paragraphs and sentences and things, but the writing it produces is incredibly bland. And even when you get it to, you have to put in some pretty off-the-wall stuff to get it to do something interesting. And even then, it doesn't have that spark of spontaneity. It doesn't have that human kind of flawed magic that is the very essence of humanity. Okay, now, so we're living in a world where uniformity and conformity, I suppose, are becoming more and more the norm. And I think AI is kind of, when you take the humanity out and you replace it with something that's been generated by a machine, you know, you're kind of going down the opposite road to a road that is authentic and raw. So how does all this apply to you, and how does it apply in the context of dating? Well, how it applies in the context of dating is there's an analogy to be drawn here, okay, between being authentic and raw as a content creator and being authentic and raw in the dating arena. Now, I was listening to an audio Infield just the other day, and I'm not sorry to explain that to people. So basically, a guy went and chatted up a girl. He went and rizzed on a girl in his just sort of a double entendre there. He went and rizzed on a girl in his local wherever it was, shopping centre or whatever, gym, somewhere like that. And he was recording it, and he posted the recording because he wanted to get some feedback on the conversation that he had. Now, the conversation that he had in itself was fine. I mean, he went up, he introduced himself, he got talking to her, he found out some information about her work, he gave some information about him and the things that he likes to do, the fact that he's in a band, you know, all this kind of stuff. But the problem with the conversation, and the reason why at the end of it she didn't seem particularly excited about exchanging numbers with him, and I don't think anything actually really came of it. I think they did exchange Instagrams, but you know, it didn't really result in a date or anything, was that the way that he came across was incredibly robotic and mechanical, and it felt like it was this rehearsed kind of scripted thing. I mean, even though it wasn't, it lacked spark, it lacked excitement, it lacked any sense of danger. And when I say danger, I don't mean physical danger, but I mean that beautiful sense of unpredictability that a woman likes to feel when she is with a guy who has got something about it, okay? It was very bland, really, as a conversation. It was very bland as a conversation. It lacked spark, it wasn't exciting. There was just nothing really about it. I'll try and go down there, but... so the point really is this: you need to break the mold, okay, if you're gonna be truly successful in this dating space, particularly the dating space in 2023. Because look, as you probably know, because you probably watch a lot of content and study this stuff, and you probably have your own experiences, we're living in what is one of the most challenging dating marketplaces that's ever been constructed, okay? It's very, very tough out there for guys. A lot of guys are finding it very, very difficult. And I know this for a fact because I've got my own Telegram group, and there are guys in there, and we talk about this stuff, and they talk about their experiences. And you know, guys out there are finding it tough, and we know the statistics back that up as well, in the sense that virginity is at an all-time high amongst young men, and they're finding it very difficult to find partners for sex and romance and relationships and all that. So it's tough out there, okay? And women's desire, if you like, is for guys who have got something about them, all right? So that's whether, you know, obviously then the black pill guys will just latch on to the fact of, well, he just needs to be a Chad, you know, he needs to be physically good looking. And yes, of course, I mean, looks are a part of it, a big part of it. But equally, does the guy have anything about him or not? And this is simultaneously the most important aspect, really, of the whole dating thing. And it's also the most difficult to teach, because what you're really trying to teach here is chemistry. The most important thing, and look, there's a lot of very nerdy sort of old school dating game advice that's been around since the earliest parts of this century, really, you know, the very early 2000s. So this old boomer kind of dating advice, dating structures, and you know, conversational structures and things like this. And some of it's got some merit, but a lot of it is kind of this very nerdy, kind of geeky thing. And guys will just fixate on the structure, okay? Guys will fixate on, all right, so what did you say? What did you say then? What was your follow-up? Okay, what was your opener? What was your this? What was your that? And what they miss and what doesn't get talked about as much is, as I say, the most important thing, and that is the chemistry that is ignited in that moment when you guys meet, okay? That chemistry that's ignited, that you ignite, that you are responsible for igniting between the two of you when you guys meet, all right? That is the thing that's going to make her want to meet you again for a date. So say, you know, you're here in Romania, hello, you're here in Bucharest and you meet a lovely girl and you get into a conversation, right, and you get her phone number right. If the conversation was exciting, if the conversation was dynamic, if there was some edge to it, if there was some energy between the two of you, okay, she's more likely to then want to see you again. So when you send your message later, like, oh, hello, Maria, it was very nice to meet you earlier. How is your day? You know, when you send your message later, she's going to be more likely to respond to that message, and she's going to be more likely to want to meet you for a date or for a drink or, you know, whatever it is, if there was some vibe there, okay? If there was some rizz in that first meeting. If there wasn't, you know, she's just gonna, even if you get a phone number, she's just gonna ignore it, or she's just gonna block you when you message her, okay? And what I've noticed more and more in working in this field and trying to help guys with this stuff and trying to advise on this stuff and observing what guys do and seeing in real time, you know, the results of these conversations, or the way that a lot of guys are approaching these conversations, there's a real lack of rizz out there, okay? And when I say rizz, it's a term for charisma, basically, which the kids are using these days, which, you know, as a way to talk about basically chatting up a girl. There's a real lack of rizz. Okay, so what happens is the guy goes out and he goes and talks to a few girls, but he does it in a very boring, bland, dull, mechanical sort of a way. And one of the other issues is that not all guys who are in need of, you know, who come to dating coaches for help, not all guys by any means, but some guys, and probably maybe a majority of guys, a small majority of guys, tend to be the more analytical, sort of logical type dudes anyway. And these guys can be very intelligent and they can be very successful in their careers. But unfortunately, they also are the people who find it the hardest to really learn this stuff. Because, as I said earlier, right, what you need to do, really, if you are that guy, if you're that super logical, intelligent, but probably socially a little bit awkward sort of a dude, and, you know, you're going up and you're approaching and you're saying ostensibly the right things, but you're not getting the results you want, you've got to break the mold. You know, that's what it comes down to. You've got to basically smash the mold, throw it out the window, scatter the pieces all over the front garden, and kind of start again, really. That's what it comes down to. For me personally, I mean, I was that guy, okay? And I've told the story on various platforms before, but I was that guy who found socializing very difficult. I was very shy. I was also introverted and quite sort of logical as well, quite cerebral, quite in my head, which is kind of what I'm talking about here. And let's go over here actually. And it was really only when I went to Manchester, a different city in England, and I was at university and I started basically partying, going out and basically drinking a lot and ingesting a lot of substances. And I don't recommend this as a solution for you, but I'm just saying what I needed in order to break out of the mold was to scramble my brain to such an extent that I shook myself out of the torpor of my bland middle class persona and became somebody else, okay? It took a seismic, you could say almost spiritual change in me in order to become somebody who had a bit of riz. I had to basically destroy my life in order to get riz. Now, again, you know, take all of this with a pinch of salt. I'm not recommending anyone destroys their life, and I'm not recommending you go and do a bunch of drugs and drink and so on. But you've got to see what was required, okay? I had to break out of the confines of my previous persona. I had to smash the operating system, and I had to become somebody who operated in a radically different way, okay? And when I did that, pretty much overnight, you know, and it sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not, pretty much overnight, the results I was getting started to change. You know, I found a girlfriend who was actually very pretty. Other guys were very jealous of the fact that I got together with this girl. I was with her for a few months. That inevitably ended up messing up because I had no idea how to conduct a relationship properly. But nevertheless, you know, I was with her, and then pretty shortly after that, I met another very pretty girl, and I was with her for a bit, and you know, it started the ball rolling, okay? And I became somebody who operated in the social sphere very differently to how I'd ever operated before, all right? But as I say, I mean, the way that you do this, because guys are gonna be thinking, okay, so how do I do this if I'm not gonna take a load of drugs and, you know, destroy my life? The way to do it really is to get coaching and to get somebody to challenge your beliefs about yourself and about the dating world around you, okay? You need somebody to push your buttons and probably get you a bit riled up and really challenge you, okay? And it's a very difficult thing to do on your own. And, you know, being honest, it's quite a difficult thing to do even with mentorship, right? I mean, you've got to be prepared to go the hard yards. But yeah, a lot of guys, it really is the personality stuff that's messing them up, okay? It really is the personality stuff that is causing them not to be successful. And guys will think, well, you know, women say they want a guy with a good personality, and that means I've got to be a nice guy, but they don't really like nice guys. It's a misinterpretation of what women mean when they say they want a guy with a quote-unquote good personality. They don't mean I want a nice guy. What they mean is they want someone who's challenging and dynamic and fun and maybe a little bit dark and maybe a little bit dangerous and maybe a little bit unpredictable and maybe with a little bit of spark and fire in his eyes, okay? And if you're not that dude, guess what? You know, you're gonna be waiting by the phone while she's banging Mr. Zurker back at his Miami penthouse suite in the hotel. So if this is resonating with you, then please firstly subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop me a comment below, give me a like, and then get on my Telegram group, there's a link below. And then book a call with me and we can discuss your dating life, you know, what you're doing and how we can work together to improve it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you again very soon. From Bucharest, Romania, Troy Francis, bye-bye.